Welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is March 19th. Today, we are stepping back in history all the way back to 1687, when one of France's most ambitious explorers, René-Robert Cavelier, Sieur de La Salle, met a brutal and unexpected end. Not at the hands of a rival empire, not taken down by a hostile indigenous tribe, but murdered by his own men in the wilds of what is now East Texas. La Salle was a man of big dreams, and he wasn't afraid of taking risks to achieve them. He's the reason that France claimed the Mississippi River Basin, which was a move that shaped history. But while his ambition got him far, it also made him a lot of enemies along the way, including the very people he relied on to survive. So how did one of France's greatest explorers go from charting new worlds to dying and being abandoned in the wilderness? And what really happened on that fateful day? Today, we're digging into the story of La Salle's rise, his final doomed expedition, and the mutiny that cost him his dreams and his life. Let's get started. La Salle was never the kind of guy who was going to settle for an ordinary life. Born on November 22nd, 1643 in Rouen, France, he came from a successful merchant family, and he had every opportunity to just stay there and live comfortably. But La Salle wasn't interested in comfort. He was drawn to adventure, danger, and the promise of new lands. In 1667, at the age of 24, he left France and sailed to New France, which is modern-day Canada. There, he wasted no time throwing himself into the world of exploration. He built a fur trading empire and developed a grand vision. He wanted to connect French colonies all the way from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico. It was an ambitious goal, but La Salle had the confidence and the stubbornness to make it happen. His biggest achievement came in 1682 when he and his men traveled the entire length of the Mississippi River, staking claim of everything in sight for France. He called it Louisiana in honor of King Louis XIV, and for a brief moment, it seemed as though his dreams of a French empire in North America were going to come true. But if history teaches us anything, it's that success can be fleeting. What came next for La Salle was a downward spiral, one that would lead him to betrayal, murder, and an unmarked grave in the wilderness. After his Mississippi triumph, La Salle went back to France eager to secure more funding for his next big move. He pitched an ambitious plan, establishing a permanent French colony at the mouth of the Mississippi River. King Louis XIV loved the idea. It would give France a strategic stronghold in North America, and it would cut off Spanish expansion. In 1684, La Salle set off with 4 ships and 300 settlers. But from the moment they set sail, things went horribly wrong. Their maps were inaccurate, they miscalculated their route, and before they knew it, they were hundreds of miles off course. They ended up on the Texas coast, nowhere near the Mississippi River, and didn't even realize it. To make matters worse, one ship was taken by pirates, another wrecked on the coast, and disease and starvation started taking the lives of the settlers. But La Salle, never one to admit defeat, pushed forward anyway, deciding to build a settlement right where they landed. He called it Fort St. Louis, but what it really was a desperate and doomed outpost. The colony was barely holding it together. They ran out of supplies, they clashed with the local Karankawa tribe, and then the settlers began turning on each other. By 1687, with conditions growing worse, La Salle made the desperate decision to lead an expedition inland to find help. But by this point, his men had had enough. By early 1687, the expedition had completely unraveled. The men were starving, exhausted, and fed up. Their dreams of wealth and adventure had turned into a nightmare. And worst of all, they blamed La Salle. On March 19th, 1687, deep in the wilderness near the Brazos River in modern-day Texas, the mutiny began. The ringleader was Pierre Duhot, a nobleman who had poured his own fortune into the expedition and had nothing left to show for it. Alongside him were Jean Le Charvec and a handful of desperate men who had reached their breaking points. That morning, La Salle went searching for his missing nephew, completely unaware that his men were planning on killing him. As he walked into their camp, Duhot confronted him. An argument erupted, but before La Salle could react, bang! Duhot shot him in the head at close range. And just like that, one of the most ambitious explorers of the 17th century was dead, his body left in the dirt, stripped of its belongings. The men didn't even bother burying him. But La Salle's murder didn't actually solve any of their problems. Afterwards, his men further descended into chaos. They turned on each other, fighting over supplies and power. Some were killed in infighting, some disappeared into the wilderness, and a few were later captured by Spanish forces. By the time the news of La Salle's death reached France, it was way too late to bring his killers to justice. France launched an inquiry, but with no evidence and few survivors left, the case really couldn't go anywhere. Despite his brutal and senseless death, La Salle's legacy endured. His dream of a French empire in North America didn't die with him. It laid the foundation for future explorers. Today, cities, universities, and streets across both the US and Canada bear his name. But his story also serves as a cautionary tale. It's a reminder of how ambition can inspire, but can also destroy. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found today's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!